Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Menkov. I'm a ruling reality coach, and today I'm continuing my series Beyond Success Reality with Alex. It is 2nd of April 2025, and I would like to speak today about the work-life balance and the way it is connected to the way how we are perceiving reality and how basically if we don't understand some common hidden principles of the unseen, and if we are not able to realize how to see the unseen, how to unpack that which is very well apprehended by us, but we cannot recognize it with the five senses. And if we are able to know on our daily base that maybe 90 to 95% of everything that we are trying to recognize around us is basically in the unseen. And I'm going now to show you how I'm doing my work-life balance and why it is so important to constantly recognize and to have these pattern recognitions of the basics of how our daily reality is made in order to understand why the core essence of the unseen is so important about our performance, about our flow, and about the way we are actually moving through our life experience. And of course, we can divide our 24 hours reality in three parts. We have the night cycle, which most of us don't understand how important it is, the way we sleep, how we prepare ourselves before we go to sleep, and how we are waking up and are transitioning from this approximately 8 hours or 33% of our conscious or subconscious experience in this material world. If we don't understand how are we to work in these 8 hours, we are going to miss 1/3 of our experience here, and we are not going to understand why it is so important. The second very important part of the human experience is our so-called 8 hours working cycle. It doesn't matter if we work for ourselves, if we are owners, like I'm an owner, if you're a worker, as a lot of us are workers, or if we are just trying to cope with life and just are moving around and experiencing during the day without having anything in common to do because we are so wealthy. Still, there are things that we are doing consciously during this day cycle. And then there is the third cycle, which is very precious for all of us in wordings, but we rarely put goals, we rarely work with our intent in this third part of our life. And this is where the preciousness, at least this is how we say that it is, we put and we say with our wordings that this is where the most precious part of our experience is. And this is the so-called family life, the so-called intimate part of our life experience. And we can say, just hypothetically, that it is maybe approximately 8 hours. So we are spending 8 hours with our most intimate beings, our children, our wives, our relatives, or it depends on the way how we have structured our life with the most intimate experiences where we can have the most deep impact upon our inner being. And if we have these three parts, our sleeping part, where in any sense we are 100% alone. All our inner experience is working within us in the unseen realm, not only of the material, but and in the non-material. And there, in this moment, we can say that we are alone. So if you have the work balance separated in three parts, if we hate one of the parts, for example, some of us can say, well, Alex, I don't like sleeping. I don't like uh, all these things. I have so much problem in this area of my life. I need to take pills, or there are so many things happening, and I don't enjoy at all this part of my life when I'm alone, when there is nobody, when my thoughts are coming towards me so strongly. I don't cope with this part of my life. Or some of us can say, well, Alex, I hate the second part of my life, working. I don't want to work for these people. I don't want to work in this country. I don't want to work in this environment. I don't want to have such purpose and meaning that is put upon me in this 8 hours working frame. I don't like at all this construct. I want to escape the matrix, or whatever we're saying that we are doing in the active part of our 8 hours in our second part. And then some of us hate the intimate relationship part, when some of us can say, I don't like kids. I don't want to have a personal relationship with another being. It is so hard for me. I prefer to live alone and to do my own things, and I don't want anybody else to bother me. And now let me explain why it is so important to cope balanced in these three areas of our life. And maybe I'm going to start with another deviation and explanation about how the invisible is ruling us. A lot of us that are following conspiracy theories and that don't like the way life is presented to us and how it's structured, and why the so-called 1% are ruling us and the so-called they are constantly monitoring us. They are constantly structuring our life. They are giving us the construct. We don't want to obey the they. Who are the they? Who are those that are constantly, based on our own imagination, telling us how everything should be done, how the structure is done, and we are not able to escape this matrix, these frameworks in which we are put. And if we just stay into this direction, then we are going to recognize that we can balance this if we know and if we learn how to recognize the invisible part of reality, and then to know how to influence it from the inside out, but based on the fundamentals of life and the experience. And just imagine now that all the rulers that are ruling in the visible reality are invisible. Let us just imagine that our own experience is ruled not only by our thoughts, but the invisible generators that are even behind the thoughts, behind the narratives that are not seen, that are non-material, but still they are in existence. And in order to be able to comprehend this part of our experience, we are to understand that we are border zones, multidimensional creatures, and there is much more than the so-called material part of the dimension in our existence. It is not possible to comprehend life. It is not possible to grasp and to penetrate into the experience if we are not able to recognize and to acknowledge that the invisible is ruling over us in all the aspects of life, and we are given the possibility to influence it in such a way that the purpose and meaning and narrative and structure and construct can be changed according to the way we want to participate in the so-called visible-invisible relationship. And that's why let us all just imagine that thoughts, that narratives, that the so-called programs of the invisible are anyhow created already and are constantly energized by the human beings, and they're anyhow in control. It is something like we now, the human beings, imagine that maybe in 5 to 10 years, the artificial intelligence is going to constantly control our material world. But the invisible world in the mental realm, in the spiritual realm, is already controlled by different types of energetical structures that are constantly generating narratives. And if we don't recognize them, if we don't perceive the invisible, it is impossible for us to understand how to stand up in the material world and to know how to rule, not over them, but besides them in our own personal reality. I'm not telling you that we can, for one day, change the world, that we can, any one of us can create its own constructs with its own elementals. It's impossible because the elementals are already holding the structures in which we exist, and we cannot exist without them, but we can define our relationship towards the invisible. And when we look in the work-life balance in this direction, then we can start understand a lot of things about our reality. And let me give you now more material examples about, for example, our work cycle. Alex, in the past, all the human beings were slaves, for example, to another beings. There was a big ruler, emperor, and all human beings were just worshiping and doing what the emperors were saying. In today's world, we have changed the narrative, and now we think that we are living in some type of democracies. We have organizational structures. We rule each other through the governance and governmental powers that we as human beings commonly decide that we have created. And there are a lot of benefits of all these structures that we have created, and the wording for all of these creations of the invisible world, we are calling them civilization. We cannot exist today, 8 billion or 9 billion of us, without having this framework of civilizational structures and hierarchical ways of existence. So, in a sense, it is not possible not to recognize them. And when we go into our work cycle, we know that there are rules that we need to keep, and there is energy that is expected from us to give away to these so-called egregorial, organizational, invisible structures that are ruling us on a daily basis. So 33% of our energy is to be given to the structures that are later on, by giving us our invisible powers, essences, energies, they are materializing for us then some conveniences. Today we call this type of structures organizational, companies, corporations, or whatever we can say, and all of them are constantly producing as a byproduct for all of us, goods and services. And we enjoy the material part, but we are giving away our energetical forces in order to have this balance. But anyhow, if we don't comprehend it, if we don't understand this relationship, we are not going to be able to know why and how and what exactly are we to give away from ourselves during this 8-hour working cycle. It doesn't matter if we are already put into and we have contracted ourselves to an 8-hour working experience in an organization, or like me or some other guys have or girls have created their own organizations. They are still working in them, or they're still owning them, or they're still managing them. So it's again working experience in these 8 hours. And this is part of the work-life balance cycle. But there are also invisible structures in the so-called intimate family relationships of the other 8 hours. And there, if we don't understand the power of these structures, and in the third phase of my trying is to explain you how I'm working with these 3 cycles, the sleeping cycle, the family intimate cycle, and the working cycle of our existence. You are going to understand how to work with the amplifiers that are there for us and that can help us to basically increase our capacity, increase our impact, increase our influence, and basically all these type of invisible organizational structures, instead of resisting them, we can little by little create change in the environment around us. There are 2 basic principles that are very important, and 2 impulses that are striving towards 2 different directions. One of the directions is called the mechanical universal existence. The structures want to put us into a mechanical experience. But nature and the way the basic fundamental construct is created is non-mechanical. It's fluent. It's in a constant change and counterbalancing influences. And once we realize that there are superior frameworks that are not allowing mechanical structural experience to be dominating, then we can start to recognize our powers. Because the non-mechanical experience means that even me or you are part of an organization, are willingly working and giving away something into functionalities and processes and organizational experiences, the way the part is working, the way the part is transforming, the way the part is expressing, is changing little by little the big structures. So it is possible, each one of us, with the smallest and brightest and willingness of intention, to change small things that are connected to our part of the experience in the big organizational structures. But Alex, some of us can say the frame is created in such a way that it doesn't give us a lot of freedom, or if it gives us some big freedoms to express ourselves, still it looks like it's very artificial, and it is like a corporational type of environment and social structures, but basically they are not working, and it is not possible for the human being to express its essence in a way that we would like to express ourselves in order to help the so-called common good. It doesn't matter if the common good is for the organization, if it's for the bigger social structures, or if it's for the whole humanity as a whole. But once we know that the part that each one of us is playing in this 8-hour working cycle is so important, and basically, based on the way we are expressing, we are constantly changing everything that is outside of us. And once we grasp this powerful benefit and the powerful impact that each one can create from the small actions, then the meaning of the 8 hours of the intimate experience during the sleep, during the before sleep, when we are alone, during our meditation, prayers, or whatever type of reflections we are doing in order to enhance and to understand and to align ourselves with the invisible, becomes to make sense. And then, in order to understand the work-life balance, we are to understand the intimate relationship part of our family experience. Because there, if we, during the work cycle, are so exhausted that we never put effort, we never put intent into our intimate relationship part, where we are the most open, where we are the most vulnerable, but where we are also the most protected. If even there we're not able to be ourselves, even if there we're not able to be the authentic father, mother, child, or whatever type of the relationship is, in order to know and to be validated that someone honors and someone is esteeming the inner being that each one of us in a friendly environment. If we don't support each other in these intimate relationship organizational structures, if we don't cherish them, if we don't nourish them, then it's very hard to learn how to work in the other type of structures. And organizational, egregorial, corporate, experiential organizations. That's why once we learn that the human being, the man and the woman, are creating a family and are creating a marriage, and the marriage is not just a concept, it is energetical structure. It is an egregor. It is something that both the human beings are constantly nourishing, and it is creating something more than what each one of them is. We are able and we are allowed to participate, to organize together in small, intimate numbers, and also in big, large numbers, as nations, as continents, as corporations, as transnational corporations, or small, intimate family companies. It doesn't matter during our work cycles, but also we are to cherish the way our intimate egregores and organizational structures are working, created, nourished, and energized. So once we enter the second part or the third part, it depends how we count them, but once we are in the cycle of the family experience and the intimate experiences, we are also to have goals. We are also to have intent. We are also to have dreams. We are also to have desires. We are also to nourish it. We are also to cherish it, and so on and so on. And that's why it is very easy when we see our goals to see how many of our goals are connected with deepening our experiences in this 8 hour of our intimate relationships with our family. Of course, a lot of us can say, well, Alex, but I don't have these 8 hours. I have 1 or 2 hours in the evening to see a little bit my people, and then I'm going early in the morning. I cannot work only 8 hours. I need to go 2 hours just to work, and then 2 hours back to work. So it becomes almost 14 hours, and it is so difficult in our type of environment. It doesn't matter how we are positioning these three experiences in the time-space frame. Still, we need to learn how to cherish these experiences and to know that we are to balance our energy in such a way that we keep enough energy for the most precious part that we say that we are cherishing. If we are cherishing the intimate relationships, our most energy, our most feelingness, our most mindness and mindfulness should be left for this part of our experience. And of course, before we go to bed, when we wake up early in the morning and do our routines, again, we are to put as much as possible intent and experience and energy into understanding why it is important to be aligned with the invisible. All the whys are there. All the whys are in the evening. All the whys are early in the morning when there is only essence, when all the frames, when all the structures, when all the other things of life are going to wait in the outside and we are just alone. And then in these moments, we are most energized from the essence and from the presence and from the understanding of the invisible. It is very important to have the right type of positioning, because if we go into the disbalanced positioning where we are just willing in these three parts of our experience just to consume, we can go into our intimate relationship with people around us and just want to consume everything possible. If we go into our intimate relationship with the invisible, with God, or the way we call the relationship between the higher existence and our own personal experience, but if we're just willing to consume, if we're just willing to experience in order we to experience it, we to feel, we to have the energy, we to be powerful. If we just want everything for ourselves, then we need to realize and to understand who are we feeding, because nature and reality is working in the balancing way where light is possible to be materialized in the visible spectrum only if it's reflected. So, in a sense, once we are able to experience something, it is just in order to be able to give it away in our other way of the relationships and further experiences that we are going to have. So just imagine the sun that is constantly giving its energy away. And when we ask ourselves, well, Alex, but how is it possible the sun to constantly give energy and the energy to come from the inside out based on a lot of different processes that are, in a sense, from the human science a little bit understood, and maybe a lot of them are not understood, and there are a lot of fusions and something is happening inside the core of the sun. But anyhow, it is not taking outside energy, but it is just expressing. Of course, we are not in the same situation because we as a human beings are not constructed in the same way, but still it is important to understand that the light is not only within us, but we are through our intimate relationship with the unknown to understand that when we are perceiving, when we are downloading, when we are able to understand, when we are approaching wisdom, when we are in a situation where we feel enlightened, to understand that we are not consumers of these experiences. We are not consumers of the awareness in order we to have it for ourselves, but it is given to us in order to give it away, to create a flow through us, which is impacting the ecosystem around us and other human beings and all the things that are around us are starting to experience and to enjoy our presence, to enjoy our ecosystem, to enjoy everything that we are creating around us because it becomes beneficial for everything that is connected to us. And that's why it is important when we are balancing our personal experience to know that we are altruistic, that we are not willing to obtain power, we are not willing to obtain knowledge in order then to show them who am I, to show them or to compete or to defend or to present or to project. No, we don't want to be projectors. We just want to be normal human beings that are constantly creating space for each other and are constantly supporting each other's existence. So, in order to be working with the work-life balance, we are not to ignore what already is and also to use what is as amplifiers in order our intent, our internal being to have much more positive impacts in our companies, in our families, in our children, in our personal relationships, and in everything that we do. So we are constantly charging and discharging through this type of relationships. But once we understand, and maybe some of you can say, well, Alex, but you almost didn't spoke about the sleep and how you are working in these 8 hours where you are constantly and staying in your subconscious. I'm doing some routines, and yes, it is not only affirmations before you go to sleep, but you, at least I am willing to go into my sleep cycle with knowingness that it is part of my life. It is part of my tomorrow's preparation. During the sleep cycle, there are sometimes a lot of dreams that are coming, a lot of insights that are coming, and so on and so on. And when we wake early in the morning and whatever we are able to extract from this part of ourselves, because there the subconscious rules. Once we know that during our conscious experience, the subconscious through the background is working strongly into supporting the essence of the being, maybe not the intent of the conscious part of us, but the essence of the being is constantly supported by the subconscious. And that's why once we are starting to create different type of rituals, and once we understand how important the sleep cycle is for us, it is also going to be part of the way we are positioning, renovating, deepening our personal experience. And the more we are attached to the unknown, the more we are attached to the unseen, the more we are to interact in the visible reality with attitude, with power, with impact, but not because we want to do it and to show off, but just because this is who we are based on our positioning. And of course, long term, we are constantly into grasping and understanding more about our authenticity from the different feedbacks that we are receiving. So this is all for today. I was just willing to express very small part of why it is impossible to rule alone. It is impossible to not recognize the invisible that is so strongly influencing us, and still we think that it is only us. Still, we think maybe that it is only us who are going to decide and that nothing else matters. But once we understand how to use the egregors as amplifiers, how to work in our different type of relationship, organizational, structural experiences, and to make more and more amplifiers that are helping us to extend our relationships and to express more of our authenticity. So thank you for watching today, and don't let's all of us not forget that ruling our reality, it's constantly and totally dependent not only upon us, but upon everything in which we are already involved. So thank you for watching and enjoy your reality. Bye bye.